Hymns of Vishwamitra. Sukta 5. The fire is awake, fronting the dawns. One illumined, he becomes aware of the path of the seers, kindled into a wide might by the seekers of the godhead. The upbearing flame opens the gates of the darkness. Ever the fire increases by the lauds, the words of those who hymn him by their utterances, one to be adored with prostrations. The messenger who desires the many seeings of the truth has shone out in the wide flaming of the dawn. The fire has been set in the human peoples, child of the waters, the friend who achieves by the truth. Luminous, a power for sacrifice. He has risen to the summits. He has become the illumined seer who must be called by our thoughts. The fire, when he has been kindled high, becomes Mitra the friend, Mitra the priest of the call, Varuna the knower of the births, Mitra the friend, the priest of the pilgrim sacrifice, one rapid in his impulsions, the dweller in the house, the friend of the rivers, the friend of the mountains. He guards from hurt the beloved summit seat of the being. Mighty, he guards the course of the sun. Fire guards in the navel center the seven-headed thought. Sublime, he guards the ecstasy of the gods. A skillful craftsman, a god knowing all the manifestations of knowledge, he forms the beautiful and desirable name of the luminous seat of the being in the movement of the peace that the fire guards, not deviating from his work. Desiring it as it desired him, the fire entered into that luminous native abode, wide in its approach, shining forth, pure, purifying, sublime. Again and again he makes new the father and the mother. Suddenly born, he is carried by the growths of the earth, when the mothers who bore him make him grow by the light. The fire in the lap of the father and the mother is as one who defends the waters, gliding happily down a slope. Lauded by us, mighty, he shone with his high flaming in the largeness of heaven, in the navel center of earth. The fire is Mitra the friend, the desirable one. He is life growing in the mother. May he, as our messenger, bring the gods for the sacrifice. the fire with his high, flaming, up-pillared, sublime, the firmament, and became the highest of the luminous kingdoms. When for the flame seer's life, which grows in the mother, kindled all around the carrier of the offerings, who was hidden in the secrecy. O fire, achieve at my call the revealing speech, the many-actioned, the lasting conquest of the light. May there be for us a son of our begetting, pervading in his birth. O fire, may there be created in us that true thinking of thine. And so when nature, when life comes into an undivided association and acquaintance with the foundational condition of its birth, recollection, communion and assumption and cause, then the terms, the living involvement, the living imbued majesty of necessary consecrating measure with which that continent congruence is fulfilled and upheld, may vary in its sheen, may vary in its conditional luster, but in the unconditional universal fulfillment and foundation that converts and occupies to itself, remains at home and remains undivided. So that the uncaused cause is stable unto itself, that it is awake, it is conscious, this that gives the full measure of conversion and communion, integration, and installation of the foundational presence of its full measure of state and life, taking all these dimensions and aspects into the truth of its measure unto itself, that it is awake, fronting the dawns, therefore it gives the birth, the condition, the cause, the anticipation, the glow of manifestation, which is the direct informing presence of its parent capacity of state and form, and that the dawns front, one illumined, so self-illumined, unconditioned, one unto itself, this measure to which the full aspect and course and condition of convergence converges unto, he is aware of the origin and the end, the entire ambit and gambit, the material and essence of unconditional inclusion, of full entirety, of the paths of the seers, of those who partake in this foundational non-dual essence of being, nature, state, life, purpose, soul, and reality. The fire is awake, fronting the dawns. One illumined, he becomes aware of the path of the seers. As it, going on its own way, sets everything into its dimension of uncaused cause, cohesion, communion, truth of being and nature of state. Every spark and flare being woken to the fusion and infusion of the uncaused cause, which is resident in full being, nature, and reality. One illumined, he becomes aware of the path of the seers, kindled into a wide might by the seekers of the godhead. The upbearing flame opens the gates of the darkness. And so, as I said, all these dimensions of association, awakening, delivering, fulfilling into the unparted supernal, like all the streams being delivered unto the ocean. In one aspect, the ocean seems filled by the streams. So the universal kindling, the universal association, by the anticipation, the communion, the fullness of integral and continent disclosure, by that awakening through all things, the universal truth, the universal dimension, the universal unbounded being and nature and soul and grace, opens the gates of the darkness, liberates the entirety of being's dimension to this presence and aspect and truth of unbounded inclusion and cause. So all of this is born in that first section. The fire is awake fronting the dawns. One illumined, he becomes aware of the path of the seers, kindled into a wide might by the seekers of the godhead. The upbearing flame opens the gates of the darkness. Ever the fire increases by the lauds. So this plunging continently into full condition and occasion of full self-reality and truth, this harmonization, this praise of the supreme, supernal, this voicing it going on its own way in its unparted being's significance of uncaused and unconditioned measure, full present and prescient reality, is this increasing of this wide might, this unconditional inclusion of omnific reality by the seekers of the Godhead, the opening of the gates of darkness, this ever-increasing of the fire by the lauds, the words of those who hymn him by their utterances, one to be adored with prostrations. So all of the utterances are in reality the hymning of it and it, him and him, the harmony of the unparted, uncaused communion at the heart and soul of the full occasion, harmonizes the absolute nature, voices it, hymns him by their utterances, and hence continent and continent are delivered in the full measure of communion and truth of their full capacity. So this submission, this realization at the heart and soul of the full self-law of being in measure, gives this one to be adored with prostrations. The messenger who desires the many seeings of the truth has shone out in the wide flaming of the dawn. So the wide flaming of the dawn, the unconditioned presence and prescience and purpose, in the continuous association with this being the messenger that relates in all the conditions of its functioning in truth, just as the full condition of the one organism in its life rules and guides through all of its many aspects, even more presciently and purely. This one reality, this one undergirding sameness, like the water that is everywhere in the wave, upholds the continent unison of full and supernal, delivering and integrating fulfillment to the truth of its unborn reality. So ever the fire increases by the lauds, the words of those who hymn him by their utterances, one to be adored with prostrations. The messenger who desires the many seeings of the truth has shone out in the wide flaming of the dawn. So as the ocean eats up all the rivers, is fed by them, and so as its full dimension desires the undivided integration which culminates in and of and through it. So the many seeings, the many aspects and deliveries of integration and witness all are desired into and unto it in its entirety. And so in such a way, in such an alive continent, supernal, inhering, profound and integrating soul and state of life and margin, the fire has been set in the human peoples. Child of the waters, the perfection of all process, the friend, this perfect companioning acquaintance, who achieves by the truth, this absolute setting, this absolute conformity at the back of all, gives the basis by which fulfillment, integration, resolution, and communion comes to the state of delivering being and comprising. Luminous, a power for sacrifice. So the delivering of the full angles of relation, like the branched tree to the fire that consumes and eats it. The mediate exists for the unmediate, and the continuously being subsumed, the expression of the full ambit and gambit, is the power for the sacrifice, which integrates to its uncaused condition of core. The friend who achieves by the truth, luminous, a power for sacrifice. He has risen to the summits, he has come to the perspective's point, which sees from the aspect of elevation to the nature of all things delivered. He has become the illumined seer who must be called by our thoughts. So this unconditioned reality means that it is manifest and unmanifest both. The perfection of the key of integration, resolution, admission, adhesion, full enlightenment, integral reawakening and resolution. Just as it requires the conduit of its showing through, so it informs that conduit to the full stability, integration and resolution at the seat and soul of its sacrifice. Coming through that power of sacrifice, rising to the summit of being's unalienated condition of truth and perspective, and becoming the illumined seer, the undeparted sage who comes to the uncaused cause at the soul and truth and mantle and consistence of everything which needs to be called by the being of our nature and thoughts. And so in such an intimate and companioning way, the fire, when he has been kindled, when it has taken this full dimension of truth and nature and immersion of aspect, becomes Mitra, the friend, Mitra, the priest of the call, Varuna, the knower of the births, Mitra, the friend, the priest of the pilgrim sacrifice. So the guarding of the full symmetry of the profound aspect of things, the guardian and the inner dwelling friend, that becomes the true agent, the priest of the pilgrim sacrifice, one rapid in his impulsions by the speed of the self-law, the dweller in the house, the friend of the rivers, the companioning essence of truth and harmony that fills generation and gives it to its purpose of communion, essence, and home, and the friend of the mountains, the companion of this not only process, but perspective at the non-dual concentrated seat and soul of being and origin. He guards from hurt the beloved summit seat of the being, so the beloved seat, the essence of the continent inclusion of the profound love and of integral expression and combining that gives this perspective and stability to all happening, which is loved unto the essence of all. He guards from hurt that perspective's measure, that perspective's being, that perspective's truth. Mighty, he guards the course of the sun. He guards the delivery of the animation at the back of the purity of relation and witness, the animating cause, to the propinquity's truth of full and unparted eternal combining. Fire guards in the navel center the seven-headed thought, sublime. He guards the ecstasy of the gods. So this culmination of companioning process, perspective, stability of that to which the full loved adoration at the foundation of state tends, guiding the course of the delivery of manifestation, purity, energy, and witness, and the integrating nourishment at the navel center of this unparted truth of fully continent and inclusive reality. Sublime, and the ecstasy of the mantle of unconditioned nature's divinity unto itself. All these in presence, aspect, communion, and recall are unparted. A skillful craftsman, a God knowing all the manifestations of knowledge, he forms the beautiful and desirable name. So the utterance, the expression, the integration of sacrifice, the delivery of the unfolding of the meaning in the alive presence of its state, is perfectly formed in its own witness assumption, perfect knowing and hand, the luminous seat of the being in the movement of the peace. So the sublime, transcendent, unparted measure moves, becomes the heart and soul, attention, communion, horizon of elicitation, fulfillment, and assumption, and truth and competency and agency, environing and one with the uncaused cause of the truth of this peace and soul of all. He forms the beautiful and desirable name, the luminous seat of the being in the movement of the peace, that the fire guards, not deviating from his work. And this uncaused cause's full potential, its full integration, its full communion, its full alignment, is this work, as something draws to its level, draws to its center, expresses its full dimension and its inclusive truth of full reality. So the essence of this self-establishment, the essence of this self-inception, the essence more naturally than fire giving light of this giving its entire concord at the undivorced operation of seat and soul of cause, gives this essential, beautiful, desirable name, this luminous seat of the being in the movement of the peace. Desiring it as it desired him, So this unfurling of the mantle of this supreme supernal peace of its inhabitation of truth and soul, realization and entry, taking it above any effect but in its unparted truth in the cause, brings this direct affinity that being for being is unparted. It desires it as it desires him, as he desires it, all being unconditioned and inclusive to their full capacity, the full dimension of a thing in its full reality. Desiring it as it desired him, the fire entered into that luminous native abode, wide in its approach, unconditioned in the very premonition of its presence, fueling and fulfilling reality, shining forth pure, purifying, sublime. Again and again he makes new the father and the mother. As the unconditioned eternity weds itself into the inner home and sanctum of all manifestation and witness, so it's glowing, it's self-uniting, it's having this full condition of uncaused wedding, of aspect, truth, communion, and churning to its own state of witness and truth is unparted from it. It is wide in its approach, in its nature's presence, into the truth and soul of uncaused cause in all things, shining forth, pure, purifying, sublime, and again he makes new the father and the mother, the regenerating of this truth, of this eternal, unparted communion at the heart and soul of its occasion's reality, lives, breathes, integrates, exists, within the bounds of all manifestations, every reality of witness. Suddenly born, he is carried by the growths of the earth when the mothers who bore him make him grow by the light. So the uncaused end, the uncaused universal state and nature of entirety, in all the growths of manifestation, find him all assumptively, all suddenly, all self-radiantly born when the bearing power, the mothers, the universal love, make him grow by the purity, make him grow by this directness of inclusion of cause, make him grow by the light. The fire in the lap of the father and the mother is as one who defends the waters gliding happily down a slope. The integrating termination to which all process tends, the perfect delivery of the foundational fruition of fullness and function, of the self-wedding, the self-law, of the spark or flame and the supernal, uncaused and unconditioned fire. All the process is protected in the lap of this unparted cohesion of full aspect, state, and condition of truth. Lauded by us mighty, being mighty in this truth to the heart and soul and completeness of reality and functioning in all things, he shone with his high flaming in the largeness of heaven, unrestrained by any other condition than its eminence of measure, in the navel center of the earth, that nourishing generation through all. The fire is Mitra, the friend, the desirable one, that to which we are called to have fulfilled acquaintance, relation, companioning, realization, recollection of truth and soul and source and margin. He is life growing in the mother, this fulfilled functioning of the life divine, the uncaused and unconditional, which is at the seat and whole and entire happening not only of existence, but concentratedly unto the purity of life, is growing in the eternal state of its bearing fulfillment, of delivering love and integrating reality. May he, as our messenger, as he as that which gives the meaning, counsel, essence, communication, conversion, realization of access and state of cause, bring the full divine dimensions, the gods, for the sacrifice, which is the occasion and state and being of our soul and functioning. The fire with his high flaming up-pillared, sublime, the firmament, and became the highest of the luminous kingdoms. By its direct witness, its direct access from the beginning, awake fronting the dawns, up-pillared, kindling to the heart and directness of the occasion and sublimity of all things, made the constellations, the firmaments, the symmetry at the soul of nature, and became the highest of the luminous kingdoms, this perpetual rule of this essence. When for the flame seer's life that grows in the mother kindled all around the carrier of the offerings, who was hidden in the secrecy, so this complete recognition, this complete liberation at the essence and soul and truth and access and consciousness as rousing, brings this subtlety and depth and continuum of inclusion to the foundational state and majesty of that liberated essence of being, this flame seer's life, into and unto all. O fire, achieve at my call the revealing speech, the many-actioned, the lasting conquest of the light. This full continuum, this full convergence, this delivering meaning that was wide in its approach, unconstrained at the essence and truth of all things, waking, rousing, living unto the supernal truth, unparted from the parents which are ever made true in its eternal state of full capacity, is that which you essence of being, conversion of soul, presence of place, cause of measure, are drawn unto achieve at my call this revealing speech, the many actions, the lasting conquest of this purity of state of life and soul of reality, of this light. May there be for us a son of our begetting pervading in his birth. May the supreme and supernal come to pervade, be inner agent and entire reality, consecration and communion, delivering the meaning, purpose, and entirety of the fulfillment of its conditions state, to the full presence and cause of its being of competency and reality. May there be for us a son, the perfect child, the perfect delivery and begetting, of our begetting pervading in his birth. O fire, may there be created in us that true thinking of thine, for rousing these conditions to your own measure, to this own state, allows the access by the symmetry of its own nature's law to rouse, which does not respect our accidental attempt at imposition, but awakens in the dignity and state of its own reality. And so, once again, this brings unto full perspective of birth what is necessary to life, what is necessary to fulfillment, what is necessary to involvement and assumption, and is most natural and unconstrained and uninverted to us. Namely, that the continent, supernal, natural condition, direction, fullness, conversion of essence and being and soul and life is allowed to its continent possession of root and soul and way, that primal and unconditioned power becomes our full life, our full being, our full medium of condition, communion, and truth, that alone awakens to the inner and full aspect of comprehension at the heart of all things enlivened. For if everything is regulated in the uncaused cause, if all being is born in the Satchitanand of perpetual wedding at the seat and source and soul of the self-law, then understanding the subtlety, coming into fulfilling enrichment and acquaintance with the universal, present and prescient reality that liberates in the self-rule at the soul of all, is the only access, is the only enrichment, is the only way. And thinking that we can harden down on accidental faces and demean what lives before us and get anywhere is a false direction of entanglement and loss. For if a life, as it patently does, can unfold the horizon of its inhabitation, functioning, purification, integral and uncaused continuum, that self recognizes beyond accident to the determining cause of its informing reality, then the same heightened inclusion at the foundation of being, at the foundation of the darkness, opening the darkness, exists unto the foundational truth of all. And so that uncaused cause, that unalienated condition, becomes the inner inhabitant that we must rouse and know with our full aspect of being, soul, relation, existence, approach, maturation, development, and delivery of integral and fulfilling assumption. And that putting accidents over its own state is always a condition of confusion. Inasmuch as if we know something, or we know something that's of depth and meaning and significance, like a friend, we may say that they have this or that attribute, that they did this or that, but the this and or that are expressions, are revelations, are instances of a supernal depth and presence and grace that exceeds them, that we know those things are not them. But when we put accidents over the self-law, the self-reality, the uncaused cause, then we dislocate, disassociate, and deny that which everywhere exists, purifies and avails from coming to its full expression and soul, dignity of nature, of cultivation and communion and state, in margin of and through and for its full expression's reality in ourselves.